It's 5 p.m. across India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll bring you all the day's big stories from across India and the world. And with me today from London is my colleague Stuart Smith. Hi, Stuart.
Good afternoon, Tanvi. It's 12:30 p.m. here in the UK and 1:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Russia's war against Ukraine dominates discussions at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. India's presence in the DRC could soon be coming to an end, and Japan hits a new milestone with its aging population. But first, the headlines.
India-Canada diplomatic row deepens as India urges its citizens in Canada to exercise utmost caution amidst hate crimes and violence. Lower House of Indian Parliament discusses the Women's Reservation Bill for the second day, seeks to provide 1/3 reservation to women in the lower house and state assemblies. Russian president expects to achieve peace in Karabakh as Azerbaijan's defense ministry finally confirms ceasefire. Karabakh Armenians to meet with Azeri authorities on September 21st. India has issued travel advisory for its nationals and students living in Canada amid an escalating diplomatic row between the two countries. The advisory has been issued over growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes in Canada. It said that Indian diplomats and Indians opposing anti-India agenda in Canada have been threatened. Indians have been advised to travel to regions that have seen hate crimes against Indians. Meanwhile, the Indian High Commission and consulates will continue to remain in contact with Canadian officials to ensure the safety and well-being of the Indian community. Students from India have been advised to register with the Madad portal or the High Commission's website. The registrations will allow Indian missions to connect with Indians in case of an emergency. Canada's opposition Conservative Party has asked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to provide evidence to support his claims that India was potentially involved in the killing of pro-Khalistan figure Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has also briefed Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the situation in Canada. India has rejected Trudeau's claim of New Delhi's possible link with Nijjar's killing in June this year. The allegation has led to a diplomatic row between India and Canada, with the two countries expelling each other's diplomats.
More facts. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement. We need to have the evidence that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions he made yesterday.
Further, a top Indian Army general on Wednesday said that defense ties between India and Canada were unaffected by the ongoing diplomatic row. Moreover, he also confirmed the visit of the Canadian chief in India for the Indo-Pacific Army Chiefs Conference.
It doesn't impact us. The Canadian chief is coming in here, his delegation is coming in here, and like in case of even when we look at relationships with some neighbors of ours, where we may have had a standoff, but we continue to engage them at all levels, be it the military level and at the diplomatic level. And I'm referring directly to China here. So our diplomatic efforts, as also our military efforts with even Canada, continue to be there. And we, as part of the IPAM, they will form an important partner in this journey.
Our correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us now on the story. Amritpal, do you see this diplomatic rift between India and Canada growing deeper and wider now?
Well, for the moment, it is flaring up. The Canadians issued a travel advisory asking Indians not to, asking their Canadian citizens traveling to India not to venture into Jammu and Kashmir, saying that they could, come under attack or violence, or the security situation there does not permit, which was a pretty uncalled for advisory. By the afternoon, we had the Indian side issuing a travel advisory for Indian nationals wanting to travel there, saying that given the situation there and given they used words like the politically condoned anti-India activities and hate crimes and criminal violence in Canada, all Indian nationals there and those contemplating to travel are urged to exercise utmost caution. So clearly, it looks, on day two, after the Prime Minister of Canada and the Foreign Minister of Canada made the statements that they did and, took the decision of expelling an Indian diplomat. And in retaliation, we saw the Indians expel their senior diplomat for what India said anti-India activities and interference in the internal affairs of matters of the country. So clearly, day two has followed up with travel advisories, etc. So there seems to be a certain upswing in the downward spiral of the relationship between the two countries.
Amritpal, but Trudeau has come under pressure within Canada in terms of hard evidence linking Nijjar's assassination to Indian government. What are the political or other compulsions that have made Trudeau level such absurd allegations against India?
Well, the Liberal Party has a support base in what India sees as separatist elements or Khalistani terrorists. There is no gainsay in that there is a certain support to that. Look at the document which they had come out in December 2018, which had referred to Sikh terrorists, and there was a big backlash, and they had to correct it 6 months down the line by April 2019, saying that the whole community cannot be targeted for actions of a few, and therefore these remarks stand impugned. There is a sizable diaspora of Indian origin or Indian diaspora there, and in certain sections of the Indian diaspora there is certain support for the sentiment of Khalistan. Now, the Liberal Party and its coalition member, the NDP, led by Jagmeet Singh, draw on that vote bank. So there could be considerations. We don't know. These are allegations that are made, but clearly with their own political leaders, the leader of opposition, saying that it's just a statement. There is no hard evidence. And even if we keep the leader of the Canadian opposition out, look at Justin Trudeau's statement saying there are credible allegations. What are credible allegations? There is credible evidence. So clearly their investigating agencies haven't been able to arrest anyone. So that remains to be seen. So it is being it's being conjectured that there is a conjecture that it could be due to vote bank politics or extraneous reasons not related to direct involvement of Indian agencies. If it was so, they would have put out the evidence in Parliament, as their own polity within the opposition has started demanding now.
Yes, so this issue within Canada also getting traction. Thank you very much, Amritpal Singh, for joining us on this story. So amid the India-Canada diplomatic standoff, experts believe that the issue of support to Khalistani separatists on Canadian soil has been simmering between the two countries for some time now. Experts also voice that the Canadian Prime Minister has no proof to back his allegation of India's involvement in the killing of a pro-Khalistan figure in Canada.
The relationships with Canada is not deteriorated just last week. It has been going on. It has been building up because of the Khalistani issue for a long time. I used to think that we are probably overreacting to the Khalistani issue in Canada because they are very small numbers. But it has become what Prime Minister Trudeau said in India after meeting with Prime Minister Modi was a much balanced statement. And I don't know what happened when he got back. If he had the same information back then, Why didn't he said that publicly while he was there? But Trudeau has failed to provide any proof right now.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Russia aims to achieve peace in Nagorno-Karabakh region hours after Russian peacekeepers helped broke a ceasefire between ethnic Armenians and Azeri troops. The Karabakh army surrendered and agreed to disarm completely after an Azeri attack on Karabakh claimed 27 lives earlier in the day. Azerbaijan also released a video showing Armenian troops leaving the territory. Internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, Karabakh is mainly populated by ethnic Armenians. Karabakh Armenians will also be meeting Azeri authorities on September 21st to discuss the future of ethnic Armenians in the enclave.
An agreement was reached on the suspension of local anti-terrorist measures. It was ensured that the processes were carried out in coordination with the Russian peacekeeping contingent.
Meanwhile, Russian peacekeepers in the region urged both sides to cease hostilities as the United States and the European Union both condemned Azerbaijan's actions. DD India's Alex Kadia reports from Brussels.
Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed a fragile and temporary truce in the months-long conflict over this small disputed region. Azerbaijan launched what it called anti-terrorist activities in the area on Tuesday, following the death of 6 Azerbaijanis, including police officers. 24 hours after Baku launched its operation, dozens were killed and hundreds injured. United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Azerbaijan's actions were worsening the already dire humanitarian situation on the ground. Now, Russian peacekeepers in the area have brokered a deal between ethnic Armenian troops and the Azerbaijani advance. This region, which is recognized internationally as part of Azerbaijan, is about the size of the state of Goa, and while Baku claims its territory, the population there is a majority Armenian. The situation in the area has been described as a humanitarian disaster, with aid convoys finally being allowed into the region on Monday. Azerbaijan regained control of parts of Nagorno-Karabakh in 2020 after a war with its western neighbor, and tensions have been simmering ever since. The fear now for the international community is that a further escalation could lead to another full-scale war between the two countries, the third since 1994. While a fragile peace has been found for now, 2 things remain unresolved: the desperate humanitarian situation on the ground and finding a long-term diplomatic solution to prevent yet another conflict in this already war-torn region. Alex Kadia in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on the world leaders to show unity in the face of Russia's continued aggression in Ukraine, telling the United Nations General Assembly that Moscow is weaponizing food and energy. My colleague Stuart Smith is in London. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Let's go over to Stuart now.
Ukraine's president has urged the international community to be united in the face of Russian aggression. Speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia's actions in Ukraine could have global ramifications. The US president also used his speech at this year's UNGA to condemn Russia. William Denslow reports from UN headquarters in New York.
Addressing the international community here at the United Nations, US President Joe Biden accused Russia of showing naked aggression in Ukraine. He said that Ukraine being carved up by Russia is not an example that the international community can afford, urging nations to stand with Kyiv in its fight against Russia, saying that while today it is Ukraine, tomorrow it could be another nation.
While Russia is pushing the world to the final war, Ukraine is doing everything to ensure that after Russian aggression, no one in the world will dare to attack any nation. Weaponization must be restrained. War crimes must be punished. Deported people must come back home, and the occupier must return to their own land. We must be united to make it, and we'll do it.
He said that Russia's aggression is weaponizing a number of things that impact not just Ukraine, but also other members of the international community. He said that Russia had weaponized things like food, energy, even Ukrainian children. Zelensky also said that many seats of the UN General Assembly might be missing in the future if Russia is allowed to get away with its policies of aggression as well as treachery. Zelensky gave somewhat of a preview of what we can expect from a high-level UN Security Council meeting on the topic of Ukraine on Wednesday that President Zelensky is expected to attend, as well as potentially Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Zelensky said that he'll be putting forward a proposal for a peace plan that he says could bring the UN Charter back to life. He said it could guarantee a rules-based order. He said the hopes of this plan, if the international community goes along with it, is to stop aggression not just by Russia in Ukraine, but around the world too. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. The meeting took place at the United Nations headquarters in New York. In a statement, the Israeli Prime Minister's office said the meeting was friendly, and Netanyahu has pledged to continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. Zelensky had previously urged Israel to provide more open support to Kiev. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has blamed Russia at the United Nations General Assembly for the repercussions caused by war. Germany recently announced it would give around $428 million as part of a new aid package to Ukraine. But Kiev is also expecting a supply of missiles from Berlin.
My thoughts are with the Ukrainians who are fighting for their lives and their freedom, for independence and their country's territorial integrity, in order to safeguard those very principles to which we all committed ourselves in the UN Charter. But Russia's war of aggression has caused immense suffering not just in Ukraine. People around the world are suffering as a result of inflation, growing debts, the scarcity of fertilizers, hunger, and increasing poverty. Precisely because this war is having unbearable consequences around the world, it is right and proper that the world is involved in the quest of peace.
India is the third largest troop contributor to UN peacekeeping operations, with more than 7,000 personnel deployed worldwide. It also currently has the biggest military contingent in the Democratic Republic of the Congo under the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission. But its presence in the country could soon be coming to an end, despite armed conflict continuing to rage in the DRC. DD India's Chris Okamringa has more in this report.
Indian troops try to keep the peace in a conflict-torn region in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are part of a 16,000-strong UN peacekeeping force known as MONUSCO. The force's key mandate is to protect civilians from the multitude of armed groups roaming the east of the DRC.
India has shown its goodwill to contribute towards the restoration of peace in the DRC. But there are some political challenges that have prevented its troops from fully implementing its mission of protecting civilians. Many people have been killed in North Kivu province.
A long-running armed conflict in eastern DRC led the United Nations Security Council to order the deployment of UN peacekeepers in 1999. India has the largest contingent in the DRC with over 1,800 soldiers.
Indian soldiers in the UN peacekeeping mission have over the years played a key role of preventing some towns in eastern DRC from falling to rebel hands. In 2006, they deployed attack helicopters that provided air cover to Congolese ground forces in a battle with the militia known as CNDP.
The National Congress for the Defense of the People, as the militia was known, was led by ethnic Tutsis who accused the DRC government of failing to protect them and their property. The group signed a peace deal with the DRC government on March 23, 2009, and got integrated into the National Army. But its fighters mutinied in 2012 and renamed their rebel group the M23 movement. The rebels resurfaced in eastern DRC in 2021 and took control of several territories. That angered many Congolese and sparked protests against UN peacekeepers who are accused of failing to stop the rebels' advance.
People were always asking themselves why the UN peacekeepers were not immediately coming to their rescue when the rebels attacked their villages. It was like they were just waiting for people to be killed and then send troops to count dead bodies. That was a big problem.
The DRC government has asked the peacekeepers to start drawing down their troops after their mandate ends in December this year because the government doesn't believe they're being effective. And so these Indian peacekeepers and their counterparts from other countries are now preparing to hand over their responsibilities to the Congolese army. Their planned departure comes at a time when violence has increased significantly in this mineral-rich country that has suffered decades of violence. Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa for DD India.
New data from Japan shows more than 10% of the country is over the age of 80 for the first time ever. It's the latest marker in Japan's worsening depopulation crisis. DD India's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Well, compared to a year ago, Japan has 270,000 more residents over the age of 80, and almost 30% of the country is over the age of 65, making Japan the country with the world's highest proportion of older people. At the same time, more of this population is continuing to work. Some 25% of older people are still in some type of employment as the government grapples with how to support this older population with a shrinking workforce and tax base. Worsening the problem is Japan's declining birth rate year on year. The number of new births is down in Japan. The government is saying that tackling this is now the #1 issue facing the country. Experts say that a healthy society is shaped somewhat like a pyramid with a strong base, a strong workforce, supporting a very small number of retirees and older people. Japan's problem is that it's shaped more like a barrel and that is becoming an inverse pyramid with a very large, burgeoning older population being supported by a shrinking workforce. The government has tried to reverse this trend by pumping millions of dollars into childcare plans to incentivize couples to have both a career and a family. However, there are calls for structural change in Japan to gender expectations and work-life balance in order to truly reverse the trend. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
That's it from me here in London. Back to you in the studio.
Stuart Smith joining me from our London bureau. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. In India, many women parliamentarians stand in support of the Women's Reservation Bill during discussion held in the lower house. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. News from India now. On the third day of the Indian Parliament's special session, lawmakers discussed the bill on women's reservation in the lower house. India's Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal on Wednesday moved the Constitution 128th Amendment Bill 2023, saying if the bill is passed, it will enhance the dignity of women as well as provide equal opportunities by giving them representation. The bill seeks to reserve 33% of the seats for women in the lower house, Legislative Assembly of every state, and of the National Capital Territory of Delhi.
पहला जो क्लॉज है वो संविधान का आर्टिकल 239, उसमें हम एक 239AA जोड़ रहे हैं जिससे नेशनल कैपिटल दिल्ली की असेंबली में महिलाओं के लिए 33% सीट का रिजर्वेशन सुनिश्चित होगा, जिसमें 330 आर्टिकल जो संविधान का है उसमें 333A एक हम सेक्शन जोड़ रहे हैं, आर्टिकल जोड़ रहे हैं, जिसके अनुसार महिलाओं के लिए लोकसभा में 33% आरक्षण होगा। तीसरा संशोधन बिल के क्लॉज 4 के अनुसार संविधान के आर्टिकल 332 के बाद एक नया आर्टिकल 333A जोड़ा जा रहा है, जिसके अनुसार महिलाओं के लिए स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली में 33% सीटों का प्रावधान हम करने जा रहे हैं। जो चौथा एक क्लॉज है 5, उसके अनुसार संविधान का आर्टिकल 334 के बाद एक नया आर्टिकल 333A जोड़ा जा रहा है, जिसके अनुसार महिलाओं के लिए ये आरक्षण 15 सालों के लिए प्रभावी रहेगा।
Now, many women parliamentarians stood in support of the bill during the discussions held in the lower house today.
This bill is called Nari Shakti Vandan Bill. Stop saluting us. We do not want to be saluted. We do not want to be put on pedestals. We do not want to be worshipped. We do not want to be called mothers. We don't want to be your sisters, your wives. We want to be respected as equals. Let us get down from the pedestal and walk as equals. We have a right to this country as much as right you have. This country belongs to us. This parliament belongs to us, and we have a right to be here.
चाहिए राजनीति के अंदर महिलाएं आगे आनी चाहिए, नहीं तो उनकी बात कोई नहीं सुनता है। कि जो ये बिल लाया गया है इसमें हर दल से ऊपर उठ के सभी महिलाओं को जो है वो बढ़ चढ़कर हिस्सा लेना चाहिए।
Now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Russia's Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has visited a military expo in Tehran. Shoigu, who is on a visit to Iran, said that relations between Moscow and Tehran have reached a new level despite opposition from much of the Western world. Italy has called for international help over the migration crisis. The move comes after about 10,000 migrants reached the southern Italian island of Lampedusa. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will address this issue at the UN General Assembly on Thursday. Long queues of trucks are being seen at the US-Mexico border after the United States suspended the movement of cargo. The suspension of cargo processing has come in the wake of the influx of migrants at the US borders. Mexico's foreign ministry has described America's move as unilateral and is monitoring the situation. Meta founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has said that India is leading the world in how people and businesses have adopted messaging as a better way of work. Meta has unveiled a number of new tools for WhatsApp business, including verified badges and an expansion of payment service that will allow them to complete purchases directly in their chats. So with that, it's a wrap in this edition of DD India Global. We will be back with another edition at 7:30 in the evening Indian Standard Time. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. You can also find us online on YouTube at DD India. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.